Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're talking chapter 2 of the Book of Boba Fett called The Tribes of Tatooine. In short, I absolutely love this episode. I will be, however, going fully into spoilers, so if you haven't seen it yet, you may want to click away. At least I warned you. Alright, before we begin, today's video is brought to you by my friends over at Vite Ramen, who are releasing their version 3.0 flavors. I know you guys might be wondering, heck, didn't they just have version 1.2? Where's version 2? Listen, it was such a big change. They went right to 3.0. And I can't blame them. I've been testing some of these flavors. Let me just tell you that they are amazing. You guys probably already know about Vite Ramen, but if you don't, they're a really easy way to eat healthy and live an ordinary life. Compared to other ramen, it's low in sodium, it's got lots of bioavailable nutrients, and of course, it's still delicious. As I mentioned at the beginning, version 3.0 of Vite Ramen has dropped. I'll put the patch notes down in the description. There you can get a full look at what's changed and everything that goes into making Vite Ramen noodles and flavors. I've also got a brand new Eckhart's Ladder landing page for Vite Ramen. I've got something very special in the works as well. But follow that link and you can get free chopsticks, spoons, and a sticker. Plus, use code Eckhart's for 10% off. You'll be helping not only a great company out, but also me. Anyway, on with the content. Alright, so the Book of Boba Fett Chapter 2 was an absolutely great episode. One of my favorite Star Wars things I've seen in a while, actually. While I do love The Bad Batch and The Mandalorian Season 2, there was something really special in the first, say, 3 episodes of The Mandalorian that I think this really captured. It's a focus on telling a concise and small story, world building, and really just tone. It's no surprise that both episodes feature heavily a sand planet. They sort of bring Star Wars back to their Western roots. And although it's hard to put into words, I feel like they definitely capture the vibe of A New Hope fairly well. Usually I talk about this at the end, but one thing this episode did very, very well was just overall production value. Everyone's going to point to that train chase, and that's something that you wouldn't ordinarily see in a TV show. It's, of course, a very expensive special effect. There's full choreography. It's just an impressive production all around. But there's also a lot of little details that I think are worth calling out. Immediately after the title card, there's this sweeping shot of Mos Espa. And if you haven't already, go back and watch that in slow motion. This city has real life to it. There's a speeder going by that you see for 2 seconds on the street. There are alleyways and little markets. Then it pans off into this gigantic city built into a crater with spaceships flying back and forth, and then hints at an even larger city beyond. It's an incredibly impressive scene. Then we get a look at the shots, and really the quality there is just as great. I actually saw someone point out on Reddit that the mayor's office that we visit in this episode can actually be seen in the overhead shot of the city. And little details like that, which are basically consistent throughout the show, do a great job of making this feel like a real world. I will admit I do particularly enjoy these moments. I've said this before, but some of my favorite Star Wars bits are when they're just walking through towns and we're seeing things on an ordinary, everyday level. Certain episodes of The Mandalorian did that well. This really does it well, especially with the extra great alien costumes and whatnot. All right, let's move on though, and I want to talk about other things that I liked. First of all, I thought that the performances from the actors were better this episode. There were some wooden moments in the first episode, nothing so bad as to that it detracted from the overall experience, but I thought the chemistry between Fennec and Boba could be slightly improved, and it definitely felt better this time. That could very well be because it was directed by somebody else. This time it was Steph Green, last time it was Robert Rodriguez. So yeah, the characters were consistently great. I think everyone is maybe not surprised, but impressed by how well Star Wars in general has been handling Tusken Raiders, but especially in this show. It's not as simple to say that they're a simple and kind civilization or culture that helps people lost in the desert. No, they're very hardy. They can obviously sometimes be cruel or even evil, but they're also just trying to survive, and they take care of those within their ranks. When it comes to overall story though, I was quite impressed by, I guess, the confidence that they have in setting like 2/3 of the story as a flashback. That's kind of the way these first 2 episodes have been set. There's a part that takes place at the very beginning, then a part that takes place to show how Boba Fett got there. Now, usually the flashbacks would be the least interesting part, but this show has been executing them very well. I think one of the differences between this episode and last episode is the fact that this episode also handled the present day stuff, I think, a little bit better. The idea of the 2 cousins of Jabba coming to the planet to assert claim is very, very interesting. And I think huts are a good way to tie the story to the galaxy at large, especially early on, without having to be like Kira or Hondo Onaka who's coming to stake claim. That would just be too weird. It wouldn't fit the story well. This does a good job of keeping it somewhat small scale, but also introducing galactic stakes. I do personally hope that the show does stay about Boba Fett and his journey and his claims to Jabba's throne, compared to, say, The Mandalorian, which started as a very small scale story, but especially by season 3 now will be taking on galactic significance. Sorry for the background noise, I've got 2 kids in my office. But continuing, the episode is literally 14 minutes of present day stuff, including the introduction, the title sequence, and everything else. Then the rest of it is spent on the sands of Tatooine, which I think is a credit to the quality of those flashbacks, given that, at least what I've seen, the episode has been received very well. Before I go to that part though, I will say I really love the character of the mayor. I mean, Ithorians are especially an interesting species, I think, because they do have this sort of docile, almost like herbivore appearance, but they're so strange that they almost have a menace to them as well. There's a cool one at Galaxy's Edge. The idea of them having built-in translators to the mouths on the side of their face is not new, but it's handled quite well in this, and it's just overall a very interesting character that feels very original trilogy as well. Alright, so getting to the flashback now, we actually cover a lot more territory in this than I expected. I figured that Boba Fett would be involved with the Sand People to some extent, but I wasn't expecting this depth of integration into Sand Person society. By the end of the episode, he's like fully integrated into their society. He's doing their rituals and their dances, making their gaffy stick. I thought that was a pretty unique idea, and it's an interesting look at Boba Fett's character, how he's changed. Some people have complained that this version of Boba doesn't feel like the Boba Fett of old, and I personally don't really see that complaint. I don't really know who Boba Fett is. I know what the clones are like, who he's somewhat similar to, but from the original trilogy, we kind of just do have this silent, seemingly pragmatic and dangerous individual. That sort of lines up with what we get in this show so far. When I take the expanded universe into consideration especially, I never felt like Boba Fett was an evil man, and in fact, he ends up working with the good guys in the post-Endor era more than he ends up going against them. So yeah, I really enjoyed the sequence. Some highlights to me were, of course, the return to Tashi Station, seeing Cammy and Fixer again. I thought the train itself was an amazing creation. It's such a cool idea. Trains in Star Wars are handled so well. I remember there's several levels in the original Rogue Squadron for the N64 where you're either disabling or protecting a train, and the idea of one being used to transport spice across the desert just makes too much sense to me. It's cool too that the Pike Syndicate was involved. I wonder how they'll play into the show in the future, which I assume they will. My theory is that there's some sort of gang war coming to Tatooine, and that sort of like the Mandalorians at Navarro, it will be Boba Fett's Tusken Raiders who eventually turn the tide and help him secure his throne. Because right now it does sort of seem like Boba Fett has the use of a droid, Fennec Shand, and a couple of Gamorreans. So I'm assuming he has some backup firepower, or that he's relying on the Tuskens if things get messy. I also really liked Boba Fett's sort of spirit journey, and I liked his interaction with the higher-ups in Tusken society. The last thing I want to say though is that conductor droid was super creepy. It was an amazing design, but it definitely reminded me of some versions of The Thing, particularly when it was scuttling around in the sand, and that's just such a revolting movie in the best way ever. Definitely watch it if you haven't already, but overall, really great episode. I tweeted this out after the episode aired, but if we're getting more episodes of this quality, and hopefully this length too, I thought the length was perfect, we're in for a really great season. But guys, that's all for me. Until next time, have a good one, be safe, and may the Force be with you.